hospital. But if things were acquired in terms of breathing, in terms of sustaining blood pressure, typically that is something that would be done at the hospital. So it's speculative at this point, but all the other signals sort of point to that this is, there's obviously a lot of concern here.
Mm-hmm. And Anna, you are at Buckingham Palace. What is the sense there? How has this message from the palace changed also in just the past few days?
Well, and also just in the past hour, I would say, picking up on what Max was saying, here at Buckingham Palace, it is really busy. You can see camera positions being lined up, lots of people, lots of activity, lots of very worried faces. And I would say that normally the palace steers us away from what can be a bit of hysteria in the UK media about the Queen's health, given she is 96 years old. Given we know that she has episodic mobility issues, and there have been many health issues since she spent a night in hospital in October of last year, so nearly a year ago. But generally the palace steers us away from covering. Right now we're in rolling coverage across all the UK outlets, and there is so much concern. I think we should go back to the statement that the palace first released, which of course caused all this concern, with the doctors saying they recommend she remain under medical supervision and saying the Queen remains comfortable and at Balmoral. Add to that the fact we now know, within minutes of that statement being released, that all of the Queen's children, including Prince William and Prince Harry, are all now travelling up to Balmoral to be with her. So that is where the concern comes from. And when you put it into context of the last few days and consider that for the first time Her Majesty welcomed her 15th Prime Minister, which is quite an extraordinary fact, but not from Buckingham Palace here, where you would expect, but from Balmoral, and that was on the advice of doctors because she needed rest. So we saw Boris Johnson, the outgoing Prime Minister, and the incoming Prime Minister Liz Truss all travel up to Scotland for that. And then yesterday, for a Privy Council meeting, the Queen actually cancelled a Zoom meeting from Balmoral, again on the advice of doctors. So taking into context, taking into consideration everything we've heard in the past hour, I think there is reason to be very concerned about the Queen's health at this stage. Jim, Poppy?
Well, the pictures we have there on the screen are of the balcony of Buckingham Palace just in June of this year for that Jubilee celebration. But Max, if we can look at history just for a moment. In February, she became the first British monarch to serve 70 years on the throne, extending what was already a record for a British monarch. She is a bridge all the way back to World War II, right? When she and the royal family showed such strength during the war, during the Blitz of London. Place her, if you can, in British history here, and the meaning that she has in terms of leadership through all the years and decades to the British people.
Her first Prime Minister was Winston Churchill. Her 15th Prime Minister was Liz Truss. That speaks to so much of the Queen's reign. When she took the throne, she inherited a crumbling empire. Countries were seizing independence, leaving the British Empire, and that was seen as the death knell, really, for the British monarchy. What's quite extraordinary about the Queen, if you imagine her primary role is to leave the throne in a stronger state than she received it in, she has managed to do that over the course of her reign, which is extraordinary when you consider the idea of monarchy. It's not something I think the British people would vote for now, but it's also something that they won't let go of either, and it's, I think, in large part because of the Queen. And I think she represents continuity and stability, and she steps up and she steps onto the world stage when people expect to see her. So in moments of crisis, we look to her. There was a really significant moment, I think, during the pandemic when Boris Johnson's government was in a complete mess and falling apart and mishandling the whole situation. And the Queen stepped in and gave a public address referring back to the World War. And that was the moment, really, where the country came together and decided to really lock down and for the better of the nation. And that is a typical sort of example of what the Queen has managed to do. She is there for when the government fails, effectively. And I also think she rises above the monarchy even. She's a global figure, a living, historic global figure, and someone who I've travelled with around the world and is so revered in so many different parts of the world. And I can only put that down to the fact that she isn't a divisive figure, she isn't a political figure, and she's always managed to get people to endear her. I mean, when the Chinese premier was here, he was very keen to be seen in front of the cameras and the carriages, as was Vladimir Putin. I think Nelson Mandela described it his favourite state visit when he came to the UK. So she's always allowed the UK to punch well above its weight because of the way she's always handled herself.
It says so much,
yeah.
Max. Yeah, it certainly does.
You know, when you look, Poppy, I was thinking at the pictures of her on the balcony in June,
Yeah.
when she showed certainly more strength and fortitude, though still showing her age, but the picture just more recently of meeting with the new British Prime Minister,
Sure.
you see a change, Anna and Max have been covering this quite closely, and they will continue to stay with us here, as will Sanjay Gupta, as we follow the situation in the United Kingdom as the Queen's children. They're now traveling to Balmoral Castle in Scotland to be at the Queen's side after updates this morning that doctors have grown concerned with the state of her health. We're going to take you back there live.
We'll be there in just a moment. We're also watching this. Longtime Trump ally and advisor Steve Bannon just arrived moments ago in New York, taking himself to the authorities there as he faces state-level charges for allegedly defrauding donors in the Build the Wall crowd fundraising scheme. We'll have more on what's happening with him in court today as well.